Hello and welcome back. Today I think I'm going to do a bit of a short video, because I don't think I have too much to say about those records. This is another one of my so-called new old records videos where I'm going through recent records purchases or records that were gifted to me in some cases. I bought this Pretenders album, Learning to Crawl, one of my recent new old records videos, maybe in the most recent one even, from like 1 month ago or something like that. I showed you Pretenders 2, the second Pretenders album, and I told you that I didn't really like it. I'm kind of a casual Pretenders fan. Maybe fan is even too much of a word, but I know their greatest hits. I have a greatest hits CD of the Pretenders for many years now, and I always enjoyed them, and I always thought they always strike me as a kind of a greatest hits band. They have all the elements of a great singles act, but not necessarily a great albums act. But through the years I bought more and more of their studio albums as well, and I think with this now I've completed all their 70s and 80s albums, so I think I have all of those now. Pretenders 2, like I said, I didn't like as much. It was probably it's surely my least favorite of the Pretenders albums, which I didn't think, before I listened to it, because I always thought, or still think, it has a good reputation. I think it's often seen as one of their better, if not best, albums. But maybe I wasn't in the right mood for it, but I didn't like Pretenders 2. So after that fiasco, I gave them one more chance with Learning to Crawl, and I really liked that album. So don't know what the reputation of this album is, but I really liked that album. It includes the hit single Back on the Chain Gang. I think that's probably the most famous song on the album. It's produced by my all-time favorite producer ever, produced by Chris Thomas. I love basically everything Chris Thomas ever touched. Maybe he also produced Pretenders 2, I don't know. But most of the albums he produced that I'm familiar with, I really love. In most cases, he produced the favorite albums I have of a band. If he was involved in a Beatles album, it's my favorite Beatles album. If he produced a Roxy Music album, it's my favorite Roxy Music album. I think he's one of the most. He's not really underrated as a producer, because I think he's hailed as maybe one of the maybe 10 to 15 greatest rock producers of all time. But I think he's underrated in the sense that he's by far my personal favorite producer. I think he always, he gets those extra percent out of the artists he works with. For some reason those artists seem more energized when they work with him, and I don't know if Pretenders 2 was also produced by Chris Thomas, but this definitely sounds like a Chris Thomas production, and I love this album. And since I was in this kind of a power punk pop mood, I thought, what's the other band that's of that genre that is led by a woman? And of course I thought of Blondie, and so I thought I buy some Blondie. This album I already had on CD, plus I had at least one best of Blondie, so I'm familiar with the hits and with that album. I really like that album, but I think I've often seen videos by people who have this in their favorite albums of all time rankings. At the moment I'm also doing a series of my top 100 favorite albums of all time, and spoiler, this is not going to be in my top 100 favorite albums of all time. So in a sense I think it's slightly overrated, because I think it's probably, I'm not even sure if it's the best Blondie album, but it's probably or maybe the best Blondie album, and it's a very good album, but I don't really think of it as a masterpiece. I think Blondie, even more so than Pretenders to me, are more like a singles band, a great singles band. This album is packed with great Blondie singles, so that's maybe one of the reasons why this is hailed as their magnum opus. And with Blondie, I tend to like the hits. I'm really going for the hits with Blondie. So hanging on the telephone is my favorite song on that album. Then I bought a Blondie album that I wasn't yet familiar with, Plastic Letters, and I bought it because my all-time favorite Blondie song is on there. Denis is my all-time favorite Blondie song, not written by Blondie, but great cover version. I think I once heard the original version. It's also nice, but Blondie made the definitive version of this song. The rest of the album didn't do much for me, so I think Parallel Lines, the album I just showed, is much superior to Plastic Letters, but it's an okay album, And then I purchased the Shaft soundtrack by Isaac Hayes. I haven't yet listened to it. I think I saw the movie maybe 20 years ago. I don't really have any recollections of the movie. But of course I remember that the soundtrack was pretty cool, and of course I'm familiar with the title track, which is a great classic. So I'm really looking forward to Isaac Hayes' Shaft soundtrack. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, goodbye.